Hey, welcome in. If you're here, I'm sure you want to learn about the routing page of the Behringer Wing, so we're going to get right into that. One of the things that I talked about in my video hyping up the Wing was how easy and powerful the routing page is. I thought about doing multiple videos on this, but I think I'm just going to put as much information as I can in this video, so if you got to skip around, feel free to do so. I'm going to try to cover as much as I possibly can. So obviously, to get to the routing page, you're going to click the routing button here on the left, and you're going to see all the different things, and it's going to look like a whole mess of confusion now. So I'm just going to initialize my whole desk here by going to the menu up top, and we're going to hit Initialize Console. I want to do everything, so my console will look like your console when you got it out of the box and updated the firmware and did all that stuff. When we go to the routing page on the left, everything is pre-patched here for us on the local ins. So the first 24 channels are going to have our 24 local inputs that are found in the back of the console. They've also added these little XLR symbols here, so it kind of shows you, and you can't see the scribble strips here down below, but you'll see the little XLR symbols show up on the scribble strip. This is just showing you that it's a physical XLR connection. It's kind of what they did to help you out. So before we can understand the routing, we need to understand the terminology. So the terminology they're using here are channels, sources, and outputs. So channels are literally your physical mix channels. Down below on the faders, you can see that we have multiple layers, and again, this is out of frame, but as you page through your channels, you have that many mix channels to deal with. There are 48 mix channels if you include the 8 aux channels at the end on the last page. What I'm not including is my buses, my matrices, DCAs, all that stuff. DCAs aren't even channels anyways, but we're just talking about the singular mix channels when we're talking about the channels on the left side. Before we get into sources, let's talk about the outputs. If we go to the outputs tab here up top, you're going to see you have a drop down, and these are all the different places we can send signals. As you can see, outputs don't just include the physical jacks on the console or on our stage boxes. These can be lots of other things, including our USB audio, which we're going to get to later. And that is actually how we're going to get our audio into our DAW if you want to record multi-tracks to a DAW. Okay, so we have lots of different categories for our outputs, all right? Okay, let's talk about sources. So sources are any source or signal of audio that we want to bring into a mix channel, that we want to send somewhere else. They are just things that are coming into the console, okay? Now these can also be buses and mains and matrices if you're using the user signals, which we're going to talk about at the end of the video because that's kind of like the most advanced thing you can do with this. But first we're going to talk about the different source categories. So you have your local ins, your aux ins, your AES, which is that kind of single XLR in the back that carries 2 channels on digital on a XLR. You got AES50, which is probably what a lot of you are using for your stage boxes. You got 3 of those slots. We have our Stage Connect system, USB audio, our Wing Live card. I don't have the Dante or the Waves, so I'm not going to talk about that in this video, but the concepts here are the same. We have our USB player, which is our USB stick in the top of the console here. And then we have the user signal section, which again we're going to talk about at the end of the video. So while we're in our source page, you can go all sorts of crazy and label all of the signal sources and what they are going to be for your future reference when you go to patch them into your channels. Now where this becomes beneficial is maybe you have a stage box on stage and you're always going to have your drums in certain channels, and you're always going to have maybe a rack of wireless mics plugged into a certain channels. Maybe you're a church, you have these signals that are staying hard patched in those stage boxes on stage or Dante or whatever, and you want to just set those up and label them and color code them so that you always know that, hey, if I want to grab that RF mic and bring it down a mix channel, you can just have a little bit more labeling and customization. Whereas maybe a music venue, you're switching patches all the time, we're unplugging, plugging things in. That's where maybe I wouldn't go and label all of my sources. And I personally don't like to label all of my sources because that's more of my situation. But this does give you the customization where you can here click rename. Let's say this is RF1, right? And we're just gonna pretend we have an RF mic in this. We're gonna icon color this and make it red. We can have, these sources on mute groups, which is cool. You also have some options here on the right. We have initialize, which is going to just reset all of the coloring and where it's patched to. So you can see it actually graded out here on the left. That did undo where this was patched to, so just keep that in mind. We have mono stereo pairing, so we can take our inputs, and let's say you have a stereo keyboard that is always going to be patched in and you want to link those together from the sources page. You just click stereo. That's going to automatically link odd even. Now, we can get around odd even pairing in the user signals. We're going to talk about that later. You can also do mid-side if you know what you're doing with mid-side miking. That's pretty cool. The middle section here is where the head amp remote is. So this will allow you to change per input who has control of the head amp. So that's the sources page. If you want to work in that page, great. If you don't, that's cool too. I typically don't go into the sources page much in my situation, which is why my explanation here is going to mainly happen here on the channels page. The biggest tip I have for you when you're working in this channels page is to think of it backwards, okay? We're going to route things from the right to the left. And I know that's really confusing. I don't know why they did it that way. I think it's because you're selecting your channel and then you're kind of like opening up a menu and selecting what goes into the channel. I think that's why they designed it that way. But yeah, the big tip here is to kind of think of it backwards. We're going from right to left. So we have our channels, right? So look, remember I unpatched 1 and 2. Let's go ahead and repatch those to our local in 1 and 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to unlock, this is a big thing, unlock this. This is just a safety feature so you don't accidentally touch and patch something when you don't want to. So we're going to unlock this page. Now I'm going to find my local in on my dropdown, and I'm going to click input 1, and see we're paired stereo. Maybe we don't want that. Let's go mono, and that way one kick mic, it goes into one channel, for example. And if you have this +1 auto selected here on the left, what this is going to do is once you select your source that you want to patch to your channel, it's going to automatically advance the channel selection here on the left, so you can just tap, 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 and patch everything automatically without having to click twice. So once I patch channel 1, now see it moved to channel 2, and we're going to patch source 2 to channel 2, and so on and so forth. And you can see it's just going down the line here for us. +1 auto is kind of a fun little feature there. Now when we patched an input, going back to channel 1 here, you can see we have some other options up top. We have none, which will just clear what we just did, so let's repatch that. We have our mono, stereo, and mid-side selection. Now this is the same thing in our source pages. You just get the controls here, which is again why I don't really go to the source page, I just stay on this page. Here's where we're going to talk about the power of this mixer being stereo, okay? Now, our channels and our buses and our matrices and our mains and all those things are stereo. Our mix channels are stereo. Our sources are not. You still have one mono signal per XLR cable. That's just how the science works. If you want to patch a stereo source to one of our stereo channels, we're going to be taking 2 input sources, and basically what it does is it links them together, odd even, and patches them to one single fader. Here's what we're going to do. Let's say channel 1 and 2 are a stereo keys. We're going to just select our source local number 1. We're going to click stereo. That paired our source channels. Again, paired our source channels, not our input channels. So in the stock setup of the console, now XLR 1 and 2 on the back of the console are now patched left and right, feeding fader number 1, okay? Here's where things can get a little bit sticky, because now we're looking at XLR source local in source number 3, right? And that's still patched to fader 3, but we could technically save space on our console and patch it to fader number 2. So let's look at fader number 2. Let's patch local 3. Now fader number 2, channel number 2, is getting the local in XLR number 3. Numbers start to go out the window, which is why labeling your sources might be handy. But the cool thing about this console is the top of the scribble strip, which is again off screen, does tell you at the top what is patched to that channel. When you're looking at the home page, you can also see what is patched into a specific channel as well. Okay, so we got past making something stereo, and patching it to one stereo fader. So that's pretty cool. The other great thing about the Wing compared to the M and X32 is that you don't have to group inputs in groups of 8. You can patch anything, anywhere, at any time, in any order. So I have a DL32 below me, and that is plugged into AES-A, and that gives us inputs on the AES-A drop down here on the right, where our sources come from, once again. So I want to put this talkback mic on channel 24. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab channel 24. We're going to unlock this page again because I went somewhere else before, so it relocked itself. I'm going to click my drop down to get to my different source categories. Once again, we're going to pick AES-A, and this mic is patched into channel 17 on my stage box right below me here. So I'm just going to hit A17, and there we go. We do have signal. You can see I don't have a lot of gain, so it's really hard to see this little signal here. But we are getting signal on 17, and what we can do then is we can go to our home page here. I'm going to go to channel 24 on my console. I'm going to hit select. Now we can grab our input gain, use our touch and turn, and check 1, 2, check 1, 2. There we go. We're seeing some signal. We're seeing some signal here. Hey, hey. There we go. So now my talkback is patched, coming on 24 here, channel 24. And we are seeing A17. This may be a reverse situation when you're talking about, using a stage box for a band and you're actually going to put your talkback on a local input, but nevertheless, we did it. Okay, that covers our AES50 patching into our channels. So if you're using a stage box and you want to get those signals to the desk, that is how you do that. Again, this is pretty simple now that we kind of see how this works, right? We have our channels on the left and the sources on the right. So if I want to patch another input from a stage connect box, which I don't have, you would just select that category, grab that input. Let's say this is channel 24 and you just want to make numbering easy, and I want to select stage connect 24. You just unlock and go ahead and select that input, which, see, it didn't really, highlight because I don't have that box plugged in, but you get the point. We have channels and we have sources to give those channels. Once you can grasp this concept of having your channels and sources to give to your channels, this whole thing just, I feel like, opens your eyes on like, oh, okay, it's not that hard. You just patch something to the channel you want, right? One last thing to talk about with our sources page is going to be our oscillator, and this is our pink noise, our white noise, and sine waves that you can use to, test your signal flow in your console or tune your PA. To get to the settings of the oscillator, you're going to need to be in the sources page, not the channels page. So if you're trying to patch your oscillator to a channel, you're not going to get the ability to change what that oscillator does unless you go into the sources page. So that's where you're going to find that. So we're going to go to our oscillator. We're going to pick number 1. Here we go. We have our oscillating settings. Once you have this set up how you want, we have pink noise and we're up at -12 or something like that, or negative whatever you want. Then you can go to your channels page and patch that. Let's grab my kick channel, and we're going to select oscillator as a source and pick number 1. Now I have an oscillator coming down my kick channel, you can see right here. We have one last part to go over here before I open another session and use that as another example. We're going to talk about the outputs really quick, and this is the same concept, okay? You have what your outputs are on the left, meaning your physical destinations, okay? And then you have on the right what you want to send to that destination, okay? Again, working right to left. So in this case, we have our local outs, and when you initialize the console, you see that we have 7 and 8 are our main left-right patched to our output 7 and 8. And basically what that means is, as we mix our channels here and we get our signals in, we do our processing and we get our faders up and we're sending them to the main, which is also pre-routed. I'm going to use my talkback channel here as a visual representation. We have a signal coming in. I'm sending it to the main. I have my main fader up. Everything is unmuted. I can see I have signal here on the right, and you can see output 7 and 8 are getting that main signal. And if that wasn't routed, let's say I want to route that to 1 and 2 instead, okay? We're on local out 1 and 2. I'm going to drop down my menu here on the right, and I'm going to go to the mains, and I'm going to select in output 1. Once again, burning in that idea of stereo mixer, right? We have 1 left, 1 right, 2 left, 2 right, because they are separate signals, even though it's one mix bus. You have one main mix bus, but there's a left and a right corresponding to that main bus, right? So we have 1 left. We're going to jump. We'll just do +1 auto to make our life easy. We're going to hit 1 left, and now it jumped here to local out 2, and we're going to pick 1 right. There we go. Now our main, and you can see down here what the source is, main 1 left, main 1 right, are coming out of local out 1 and 2. Let's say today I'm using a stage box, and now my stage box is on stage, and I need to feed my PA, okay? Let's do it. I want my main, we're gonna pick our output where we want the source to go. So we're gonna go to AES-A. We're gonna go out 15 and 16. So we're gonna click 15. We're gonna pick from our drop down our mains, which we were already there. +1 auto is good. We'll just turn that off so I can do both. 15 is going to get main left, main 1 left. 16 is gonna get main 1 right. There we go. Let's say I'm using main number 2 for my subsend because that's how you want to work. Now we just pick output 14, and we're going to pick 2 left or 2 right because a mono bus is just mono. You got signal on both sides. It doesn't really matter which one you pick. You just have to send one of main number 2 or that stereo bus into your mono output, okay? Make sense? Keep in mind that the way the console is set up, if we go back to our local outs, it is sending our buses. That's just giving you your monitor mixes kind of right out the gate. They're expecting you to plug some monitor sends into output 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So as you grab a mix bus number 1 here down on the faders and start mixing things into those buses, they're already patched for you on these local outs. So another thing to keep in mind when you initialize the console, you're going to get a little bit of stuff pre-routed for you so that you can get up and going. Alright, so I hope you have a better understanding now how to get signals into the desk and then send your outputs out of the desk from the output page. Before we switch over to another file, let's go over how to record to your USB stick, to the Wing Live Play card that comes with the console, and to a DAW. Okay, so when we're talking about USB recording, we are actually talking about outputs. We're talking about final destinations outside of the console, okay? So we're going to go to the output page. We're going to find what section we want to work here. So currently we're going to just start with the USB recorder, which is this USB stick you put right into the top of the console, all right? You get 4 channels. You can record a 4-track to 1 file. So we're going to take our main output, which is probably what most of you are going to do, and we're going to patch to 1 and 2, all right? So again, unlock here. We're not seeing a lot of stuff because there's not a lot of stuff to see yet. We're going to click channel 1. There we go. Now our menu popped up on the right, and we're going to select main 1 left and main 1 right. And there we go. We are patched in. Once again, using my microphone here. Check, check. We are seeing we got signal coming into the mains here. Let's hop over to our USB recorder page, which is up here at the top, and we can see we have the first 2 of our 4 tracks getting signal. And all you got to do is hit record, and then you get your file names, and you can organize that stuff. There's some selections on this page. We're not going to get into it, but that is what the USB stick recording looks like. Going back here, let's set up how to record to the Wing Live card. We're going to select our destination, which again is our Wing Live record. And here we go. We have all our channels. They're blanked out. If you put SD cards in this thing and you hit record, it's going to do nothing. You're not going to record anything because there's nothing patched. So you can see there's SD card 1 and 2, which I don't have SD cards in, so this is not going to show up here. But you can see nothing's patched. So if you try to do that without patching things, nothing's going to work. So again, destination, Wing Live record. We're going to unlock. And this is where +1 auto is going to be our friend, okay? We're going to turn on +1 auto. We're going to hit channel 1. And most likely, a lot of the stuff you're doing is going to be one-to-one, but just keep in mind that, you know, these are pulling in your sources. So if you just want to record straight, you know, your raw mic preamp signal for a virtual sound check later or for later mixing, you're going to want to use the source groups. You can also route your mains and your matrices to these things as well. If you're wanting to record channels post-fader, post-effects, that's where the user signal is going to come into play, but currently we're just going to talk about how to record the raw preamps because that's what most people are going to want to do. So here we go. We have local in. We're going to select that source. Again, we're patching sources to destinations. So we're just going to use +1 auto. We're unlocked, and we're just going to start going down the line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and patch all of our inputs to our Wing Live SD card recorder just like that. So you can see everything's all labeled over here showing us what we have just done, and that is it. That's all you got to do. Now when I go to hit record on this SD card page, which again is grayed out because I don't have SD cards in, those channels that we just set up will be recorded to those files. To play these back, we're going to set these up as alternate inputs in another part of the video. Moving on to DAW recording though, we're going to again select from our drop down, we're going to select USB audio. Now these are the USB audio channels. So in your DAW, every DAW is going to be different. You're just going to be input 1, input 2, input 3 on our Wing interface is what it's going to show up as. Again, make sure to download the drivers for it to get it to talk. I think on Mac you don't need drivers. Maybe that's true, maybe not. But on Windows you need a driver, so make sure to download the Wing as an audio interface driver and set that all up first. Make sure you're seeing it in your DAW as an interface. Then what we're going to do is the same thing. We're going to patch, we're going to unlock and +1 auto, and we're going to patch input 1, which is what the interface, you know, channel 1 on the interface coming into the computer. We're going to patch to our mic pre number 1. Now if you wanted to, again, if you're recording from a stage box, remember that you got to actually go over here to AES and you got to start patching in your stage box inputs if you want to record what's coming off of your stage box. Because if you don't do that, you're going to record your mic pre's on the back of your console, and if you're mixing a show with a stage box, you're not going to like what you find afterwards when you have no audio on any of your tracks. So once those are patched, all you have to do again is go into your DAW and select which inputs you want to which recording channels for your DAW, and all of these sources will come over to your USB audio channels and then go out to your computer, and these are the channels your computer is going to see on the left here. Okay, so that fully completes our outputs here when it comes to recording on the USB stick, the Wing Live, and the computer. Let's get into some more exciting things like alternate inputs. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to load a file. I'm going to hit my library. I'm going to go and find this file that I was working on. We're going to load that up. And my whole console just changed. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you the power of alternate inputs and what it can do for a virtual sound check. Okay, so in this session, let's pop over to my routing page so you can see what is going on here. So let's find my inputs here. We're going to go to channels, and you can see my channels. This is a pretty small session. It's a metal band. We got some drums, bass, guitar, vocal, a couple tracks. So what I've got here is I have patched my USB audio sources to my mix channels. So what this is going to give me is playback from my computer coming down my channels of my mixer here, so I can mix the show that I recorded a while ago and just kind of dial in a file for these guys and dial in a mix. To briefly explain the DAW routing and how this works is you need to, again, have the drivers installed and all that stuff. You need to have tracks to play, and then you need to, per channel, route your output of that channel to a output on your interface. Every DAW looks different, and I'm not going to be able to go into how all those work, but instead of routing that channel to the main mix bus in your DAW, you're going to select a different output, and you're going to route it out of a singular output, which you're going to do in your patch page or whatever you got going on. To explain how to use the alt input for a virtual sound check, here's what we're going to do. I loaded up a fest patch. I have my file open over here, playing audio. Everything's connected and hooking up. So what we're going to do is I'm going to patch my USB channels On the Alt input side, you have two inputs here, so we're going to go to Alt, and we're going to unlock, and I'm going to start patching my USB channels that I've recorded my last night's show to, we'll say, and we're going to go USB audio, and these are linked, so we're going to unlink those. And here we go. So kick is USB number 1, and snare top is USB number 2. So we're going to click number 2. And tom 1 is USB, let's see, I'm looking at my DAW over here because I don't have any of my sources labeled. That's coming out output 4, so USB 4. And we have tom 2 on output 5, so T2 output 5. We'll just skip ahead to the overheads. My channels are stereo, so I don't need 2 of these. I just need my overheads channel. Overheads are 7 and 8, so we're going to hit 7, make that stereo. Now these 2 sources have linked, and they are coming down our one singular stereo channel labeled overheads. Let's finish it out with a bass guitar, which is output 9, so my channel 10 here is going to get USB 9. Okay, good enough for now to get the concept, right? Now what do we do with those, and how do we get those set up sort of as a virtual sound check? So if I go to my channels, I'm going to go to home here, and we're going to go to the settings, actually. So I'm just going to do a little setup here. There's a master switch here, main alt, okay? And this is very handy because what you can do is you can go to this little window down here. What you can do is select all of the channels where it says Global Input Select Enable, and that is going to do exactly what you think it's going to do. And we are going to select, we'll just go the first 2 rows here. And now 1 through 16 are going to master switch when I use that function. So we're going to just close this out. Now when I select this, all of my channels that I have filtered there are going to switch to their alt input. Okay, so I made a mistake before, and I actually did not have the wings set up as my interface in my DAW, so we were just getting the main left-right of Windows audio. But now we had channels set up right. So I have audio coming in the computer, from the computer to the channels. I can go in here and select my kick, and I can, you know, start doing my trim and my input gain, and I can play with my EQ and do my mixing with the band not in the room yet. And this gives me obviously a great opportunity to kind of dial things in. You can use this to test some sessions at home. If you get some audio tracks online and you want to mix something, use your audio, use your USB inputs and send them down some channels and start mixing and learning how, you know, the channels are sounding, learning those plugins, learning how the routing works, learn how to set up those buses and route things to matrices and mains and that sort of things, and just really have some fun with the low stress of not having a band on stage. The last thing you want to do is learn this console on day 1 and do a show day and try to learn trial by fire with something like this. I mean, this console's generally pretty easy, but there's still enough in there for, you know, for you to get yourself in a mess. So don't do that. Spend some time at home or on a dark day at your venue or your church or whatever you got, and just learn the console, get familiar with it just like anything else. Okay, so we've done our virtual sound check here, and you can see on our channel, where I'm on my channel view right now, and you can see we got these main and alt inputs, and I can very much switch these one at a time from this page here. I can switch back, you know, to my main. The other cool thing about the channel view is I can go and repatch something. So if I'm in a pickle, let's say kick 2, right? Let's say I haven't patched anything, or it's patched from the night before, and I don't want to go to the routing page and have to go too far away from my channel view here. What you can do is just click this guy right here, and that's going to bring up our sources just like kind of the right half of our routing page. And we can go ahead and select, let's see, I want AES-A2 to come to that kick out channel, right? And you just close this guy out, and it works just like the routing page. So now I've patched my main input, and let's patch my alt input too. Let's go grab a USB audio channel 1. We'll just have another kick channel for whatever reason. So there we go. So now we set up our input routing right from the channel view, the channel input page, without having to even go into the routing page. That's pretty cool. Another awesome use of the alt input that could save your show someday is setting up a backup mic. So let's say you have your lead singer here. We're gonna go to a vocal channel, and my main input is local 17. We'll go to AES. We'll go to AES17 on stage, right? Now, let's say that's a wireless channel. The wireless dies, or maybe it's a wired channel, and you're just paranoid. You want a backup mic. You can have another mic, a wired mic, coiled up downstage, you know, sitting right, ready for the singer to pick up and grab if that wireless dies, or if that first mic's giving them trouble, you know, maybe the cable rips out of the mic or something and you break a connector. You never know. Stuff happens. I've been there. And you can set up an alternate input, and the power that gives you is that if I select alternate and do AES18A, the power that gives you is now I don't have to take up another fader for my spare channel, right? Normally on another console I'd have to set up another fader, and I would take up more space on the desk. I would have to copy paste my EQ and my compression and all that stuff that I worked so hard on throughout the show until catastrophe struck, right? But now you don't have to do that. All you have to do is switch. You're on your main vocal channel and you just switch over to your alt, your backup mic, and you're good to go. You could also use this feature to use maybe like you want to be a kick mic, or you want to throw two different snare mics on your snare, testing out different mics, and you can just, you know, switch from your main to your alt, and you can switch back and forth between two different microphones on a show day if you want. Okay, so we've done our virtual sound check. It is showtime. Again, I'm gonna go to my main settings up top. We're gonna switch this back to main, and boom, now all of my inputs down here are showing back into, you know, locals and AES-A ports, things like that. So now I'm back into show mode, and my console is getting signals from my main inputs, and most of those are currently mic preamps. Keep in mind you can do this with the Wing Live card, where you can set all of your alternate inputs to your card as well. So again, if we go to our channels, our kick channel and our alternate, instead of USB, we would just select the Wing Live play and patch those instead of our USB audio. I know this video has been long. If you've stuck around this far, thank you. You're definitely here to learn about the routing page. And there's one more thing I gotta cover, which is the user signals. This is going to unlock some cool stuff for us. We're going to get some post-fader recording. We're going to get some post-effects things. We're also going to get away from the odd, even channel pairing lockup that we have with this console and many other consoles where, you know, your left has to be number 1 and your right has to be number 2, etc. Let's hop into that here. This is where we will have to go into the sources page. We're going to find our user signals right down here. In the user signal page, we have 3 sections here, okay? We have this top section, and this is going to allow us to make connections from channels and mains to different places and create user signals. And then the bottom section is where we're gonna get into just reorganizing sort of maybe some inputs. And that's where we're gonna do project number 1, which is gonna be patching an even odd channel, or, you know, fixing that issue with the stage box where our keys left is on 18 and 19 instead of an odd number and then an even number. So here we go. We're going to use user number 25. We're going to come over here and we're going to make this stereo because we want a stereo source at the end of the day. Now we have to assign a signal to our user signal. So we're kind of like just creating another layer here. We're gonna name it. We'll do the naming stuff. We'll make it yellow. We'll make it an XLR. We'll rename it keys. Okay. So that way we know what we're doing. Now let's assign some inputs. Like I said, we're patched in on AES-A 18 and 19 on accident instead of, you know, our numbering didn't work out. So we're gonna fix that. We're gonna go to assign. We're gonna go to our source. So we're gonna go to AES50A. And we're going to use 18, which is apparently patched somewhere else, but we don't care. And then our keys right signal, we want to pull from A19. There we go. So now you can see as we page back and forth, we have user signal 25 is A18 and 26 is A19. They're linked together in a stereo, and we labeled them so we can go and patch our keys a little bit easier. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to find my keys channel on my festival patch here. We're going to pop over to our channels page, and we can see My first keys channel is here. We're gonna unlock. We're gonna go to our main signal, because that's what we're patching. We're gonna go over here to our user signals. Now again, these are our sources into our channel. So now we've created a new source as a user signal. And there we go. Since I labeled them like you can do, it is easy to find, and we are just picking this 25 and 26. And because that's a stereo source, it should automatically patch both of them to our keys channel. So there we go. Now we have channel 18 and 19 on our stage box patched in for a left-right pair. You can obviously get crazy with this if you wanted to, and you could patch like, you know, a left signal from your console local inputs and the right signal from a USB input or a Dante input. I don't know. You could do some dumb things with this if you really wanted to. But that is kind of the power of the user patches. Now let's talk about the top half. This is where we can do some fun, different recording methods. So we can set up the user top. Let's go to our assign here, and you can see we have some different options. We have channels now, and we have buses and mains and matrices. On our channels page, you can see we have some different options up here. We have the option to do the tap point or the post. So if you want to record a channel post fader to the DAW, right? Let's say it's not really a virtual sound check and you kind of want to give a recording to a band that is pre-processed, and you can say, hey, this is how you guys sounded with my mix, but I'm going to give you the multi-tracks so that you can kind of reblend it later or whatever. And it's already kind of pre-processed. They don't have to go remix the whole thing. You can do that by this method here. So we're going to create a bunch of user signals. So we're going to take our kick channel. We're going to go post and left and right. Again, these are stereo channels. So and USB channels are mono. So when you go to record, you're going to have to separate some things here, and you know, use the left and the left right. So we'll get to that in a second when we get to our keys. I'll show you how that works. So our kick is going to be 1. We're going to record it post fader, and it's a left right sum because of that channel. The left and right are the same, so it doesn't matter. So there's our kick. We're going to close that out. Now user signal number 2. We're going to select snare and post fader, left-right combo. That's cool. Let's say we went through all of those things, and now our user signal number 9 is our keys. We'll just skip ahead here. We're going to assign that to our keys. Now our keys are stereo, but our USB record is going to be 2 mono things, okay? So we're going to separate these out. We're going to say user signal 9 is left. The left from the keys channel post fader. User signal 10 is going to be our keys post fader on the right side. There we go. So we've created our user sources, and now we're going to take those sources and patch them to some outputs, which are going to be those USB record channels. All right? So we're going to go to our outputs page, and we are going to select a USB audio. Output number USB audio 1 is going to receive a user signal, and we're going to give it number 1. USB audio number 2 is going to get user signal number 2. And to make things numerically sound, we're going to go to USB number 9, we're going to feed it 9, and we're going to feed 10 number 10. So now when I go to record on my DAW, input 1 and 2 are going to be my kick and my snare post fader, again, post processing and post volume, okay? And then USB 9 and 10 are going to, input 9 and 10 on my DAW are going to be my keys left and right post fader. And again, because our keys are stereo, we need to patch those and split those out back to mono signals. The upper half of the user signals can also be cool because we can add mains and matrices. So let's change our source group to a bus, right? So let's do a drum bus. Let's record my drum bus left post fader and my drum bus, and we're going to do drum bus right post fader. And now I have 2 user signals that I can now just record my drum bus if I wanted to, and maybe I can give, you know, my artist or myself just a kind of bust down, you know, multi-track of my mix without it being like just the main left or right. This will give me all of my channel processing and my bus processing set up to record to my USB or my Wing Live card or wherever I want to send it, really. For sticking around for this long, I'm gonna give you one more bonus strategy that you could use for your outputs. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about patching outputs directly through the console, effectively creating a split, like an analog split with one of your racks or your stage boxes. So let's go to our outputs, and let's say I want output 1, 2, 3, and 4 on my DL32 to be a direct through pass point. So I got a band on stage and they got some in-ears, or they got a split, and they just want the raw mic signals that are gonna come off of that are gonna be plugged into my DL32. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna give them the raw mic signals directly out into their inputs without using an analog split. Here we go. Hopping over to our outputs page, we're gonna go to our AES50A, okay? And we're gonna have output number 1, and we're gonna find our drop down, and we're gonna find AES-A input number 1. What that just did is took XLR number 1 on my stage box and just took that signal directly out to that output. This doesn't include any processing, any of that stuff. It might include gain, so don't quote me on that. It may include the gain because we're hitting a mic pre, so find that out for yourself. But that will give a clean signal passing right through that stage box from 1 to 1. Let's finish this up here. We have AES-A output 2. We're gonna feed it input 2, and we're on +1 auto, so this is making our life nice and easy. So we have AES-A 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now the first 8 inputs on my stage box are patched to the first 8 outputs, and I can effectively give my band a split tails. I can just use some XLRs or use like an 8-channel snake and just go right from my outputs right to their console. Now they have a copy of all of those mic signals on inputs 1 through 8, and then on my console I just patch those AES50A inputs into my channels like I would normally do, and bam, we have a split without a split. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, sticking around this long. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun teaching this stuff. If you guys want to learn more about this, I'm down to make more videos. If you have any other questions, or there was anything else in the routing realm that I didn't cover, please leave me a comment. I know this is a lot. I didn't really have a script, and I just went through as much as I possibly knew about the routing page. So apologies if I missed the thing you were looking for. Just drop me a comment. I will do my best to answer those questions. If you have any other topics on the wing that you want me to cover, or really anything else, drop a comment as well. I know there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with this, with signal flow. We can route channels to buses and build, mix buses and matrices and FX channels and just do all sorts of fun stuff with this mixer. So if you got any other ideas for me, drop them down in the comments. I'd love to make a video about it. This was really fun. Hope you got something out of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.